I have to point out a gentleman who's dressed up in Giants gear. He said to me, put a smile up here on the animal. I'll start off with a joke. A man died, and he went up to the gates of St. Peter there in heaven. And St. Peter says, it's going to take 100 points to get in. So tell me what you've done in life, and I'll start to add up the points. So the man said, oh, I went to Mass every week. St. Peter said, I'll give you 1 point for that. Only 1 point? Well, I gave to charity. I served at soup kitchens. And so St. Peter says, okay, you get a point each, so you're now at 3. Well, St. Peter, I was married faithfully to my wife for 50 years. I raised 4 children in the faith. And I had to sit there in the pews and listen to Deacon's homily and the priest's homily every Sunday. Do I deserve more points for that? And St. Peter says, just 1 point each. So now you're at 6. So the man throws up his arms and he says, well, at this rate, it's only by the grace of God that I'll get in. And that's the punchline. Sometimes our gospel theme here is entering into heaven. We kind of think that entering into heaven requires a certain resume, like you enter into a company or to get a good job. You have to list your accomplishments, the things that you did well, the things that you did good, and then that should get you the job. And sometimes you take that mindset here with our future home in heaven. As we start to tally up our good works and our good deeds, and then once we feel like we're at that comfort level, then we're good. Well, the gentleman here who asked Jesus, Lord, will only a few people be saved? He's asking a hard question. We're entering into the next couple of weeks here with the Gospels, what we call the hard sayings of Jesus. And this is a hard saying, or this is a hard question to answer. How many will be saved, Jesus? I mean, if I were there during the time of Jesus, that's a really good question. And then for us, we like to get a good specific answer. But think about it. What if Jesus said, well, 90% of you will get in, and then 10% of you won't? If you heard that more specific answer, what would you do with your life? Well, I'm not as bad as like Hitler or all these mass murderers. So if I'm in the 90%, I'm pretty good. Why don't I just eat, drink, and be merry and live life the way I want it to live? And because I'm not as bad as those 10%, I'm pretty good for heaven. But what if Jesus said the opposite? Well, only 10% of you will get in, and the 90% will not. Well, we'll do the same probably. Well, I'm not as good as the Mother Teresa or St. John Paul II who stopped communism. I'm not as good as those saints. I'm part of the 90% that just lives a normal life. So why don't I not waste life and again, eat, drink, and be merry? Because I'm not going to get it anyway. I'm not as holy as those others. But you notice Jesus didn't do that. He didn't give you specifics. He didn't give you statistics to mulch on or analyze. What did he say about your salvation and my salvation? He said this, strive to enter through the narrow gate. Strive to enter through the narrow gate. The word strive here familiar? In English, we translate strive or agonisma in Greek to agony. What does it mean to agonize or go through life in agony? Well, we typically experience agony in times of despair, in times of suffering, in times of difficulty. We don't agonize over happiness. We agonize during those difficult times in life. When we lose a job, and we're unemployed, and yet the bills come in. We're agonizing to pay the mortgage, the car, to put food on the table. We agonize over our health. When it's that back, or it's that injury that's reoccurring, or I can't get up in the morning like I normally can. And it's the aches and pains that we agonize over. We agonize over failed relationships, whether it be with our spouse, a friend, our children, grandchildren, those around us. We certainly agonize over that. Agonizing, though, is a process. If you go through such suffering and it's just dumb suffering and you just accept it, then it is that. But agonizing asks us in these moments of difficulty to put in supreme effort. To do what? To turn things around. To trust in God. To believe in His promises. It asks us to humble ourselves, to kind of shrink ourselves in our egos that got us into these situations where we, in this case, we're full of ourselves. Agonizing is to strive. Strive in life, not give up. Believe in Jesus Christ and His promises. And it is through this striving and this agonizing that will bring us to our eternal destination. It is no surprise that Jesus, the Son of God, gave us this example, especially in the agony of the garden. That night that He was going to be betrayed, He knelt down there in the Garden of Gethsemane, and He agonized to the point where He was sweating blood. What was He agonizing about? Well, brothers and sisters, the ultimate theme is salvation is not cheap. Salvation to you, to be saved, to enter through this narrow gate to heaven, takes effort. It takes your cooperation with God in life to get there. Otherwise, we do call it cheap grace. And you're not going to get there with cheap grace. You're going to get there with agonizing grace, with effort, with cooperation. And Jesus Himself kneeled down there in His conversation with the Father. And what was He agonizing about? He was agonizing about our salvation. Many of our church fathers said that He was sweating blood because He was deciding, Father, why put me through this pain and suffering and crucifixion and embarrassment and death? Why don't you just give me the cup? I'll drink it and I'll pass by. But what's at stake? Our salvation is at stake. If He did that, we would not be saved through the cross. But He agonized and He sweated and blood came out and He said, I'm not going to go the easy route. I'm going to go the agonizing route. To do what? To bring salvation to these people. in the present, and in the future. My brothers and sisters, life is not easy. But we hear in St. Paul's letter that it's difficult. It's going to take discipline. And God brings to you these opportunities in life for suffering. But don't suffer in vain. Lift it up to God. Lift it up to Jesus in that same moment of agony in your times of difficulty and pain and despair. And help it to be sanctified. Use that grace of God, which ultimately is your salvation. Not anything that you do. Anything and everything you do will cooperate with that. But it's ultimately Christ's grace. Join your suffering, your agonizing with Christ. Lift it up. Have it be sanctified. And that is your avenue to enter through this narrow gate. Now, doing that, sometimes in life, making difficult choices, will sometimes narrow down your group of friends. Speaking the truth, doing the right thing. The majority of the culture may not go with you and accept you. Your friends will narrow down. But you're not politicians. I don't know, some of you may be. We're not looking for the votes of people here on earth to get to heaven. Whose vote counts? There's only one vote that matters. It's only God's vote that matters. And that's why he says in the gospel, if you're true to yourself here, it's only my vote and my grace that gets you in. And those of you who are just faking it in life, get away from me. Get out of here. So as we continue our Mass here today, and as we receive Jesus in communion, that is what's going to feed you in your life, to help you through these agonizing moments, as you strive to cooperate with God for your pathway